He was a singer, dancer, and even a Hollywood star throughout the 20th century, becoming an icon that would make himself a part of Hollywood and around the world with his style of acting to dancing. Working with Gene Kelly and sometimes rivaling against his style of dancing, each and even each other, to see who is the better silver screen dancer. Timeless throughout his career, spanning over 70 years, and influenced many actors and actresses to succeed his style of dancing and acting. This is the dancing great Fred Astaire, and this is his basic biography. Early life. Fred Astaire was born to a German immigrant family with their roots and their surname coming from Prussia. Their surname was Austerlitz, and his real name was Frederick Austerlitz. He was born on the 10th of May, 1899, in Omaha, Nebraska, USA. The young Fred Astaire was able to attend school and gain an education, but would spend time working on stage whilst in education, even allowing his sister Adele Astaire performing most of his performances based on stage and even dancing together rather than acting, making the pair become the new stage act that was performing in their local theatres before working on stages around the country. He would even attend or watch various vaudeville performances at the local theatres, perfecting his style of dance routines. Then started to take up instrumental playing instruments and even musical instruments whilst performing, based on his sister doing this kind of style of acting and dance at the same time. Whilst growing up, Fred Astaire and Adele Astaire would perform on stage around the country and even sometimes play music on stage to a wide audience. This would help both of them to excel in the medium. They loved the theatre and even had been influenced by other dancers before themselves, becoming a hit in the United States. Later on, his sister would leave the dancing and stage performance business by getting married, whilst Fred Astaire was able to be scouted by various stage companies at the time of his height on stage. Acting career. During the late 1910s, Fred Astaire would make his mark on Broadway and become a mainstay star on stage, sometimes performing to the United States Army during World War One, where he was able to entertain the troops. Sometimes he would travel to the United Kingdom to perform in various West End plays in various West End theatres in London. This would help the young Fred Astaire in the acting industry, as well as being a full-time dancer on stage. In the 1920s, however, he would still work in London whilst making it to as an actor on stage, and even sometimes choreographing his own dancing style to various actors of the stage. Whilst making a name for himself in the 1920s, he would visit and work with his sister Adele, who was able to be married to a lord in the UK. He would help her with various stage performances in London, whilst Adele lived with her husband in the United Kingdom. Fred Astaire would even have time to perform on big productions at the time, such as The Bunch and Judy 2 Funny Face in the UK. And even in the United States, he would be performing. Sometimes he would perform with dance partners that would excel in their own careers. This made Fred Astaire one of the best and even the greatest performers on stage, even by incorporating his dance style with acting on stage. RKO Pictures would be able to scout the great Fred Astaire and would offer him a job as an actor in Hollywood, whilst he was making an impact in both the United States and the UK with his stage performances. He was becoming a sensation that Hollywood needed to have in their gallery of stars at the time. He accepted a contract with the new film production studio during the 1930s. His first film for RKO was called The Gay Divorcee in 1934 and would star alongside his dance partner and even the same Hollywood actress Ginger Rogers. Later on, in the same decade, he would work on more movie productions with Ginger Rogers, even with RKO Pictures at the same time. And these films were Top Hat in 1935 and Too Carefree in 1938. Dancing to Hollywood. Fred Astaire finally made it to Hollywood in the late 1930s, or in the 1930s itself. Whilst the Great Depression was in full swing, the cinema was for those who could afford it. For those who could afford it, would watch Fred Astaire liven up their day, and even watch other actors and actresses perform on the silver screen. RKO Pictures was able to finish their contract with the young Fred Astaire in the late 1930s, with him being even now being a Hollywood star and even an icon to many over the decades. He would get another contract, but with MGM Studios, who would help Fred Astaire to continue his Hollywood acting status. In the 1940s, however, more actors and actresses would work with the great actor, even have time with him to share his talent, and even share their talents with him. His film appearances would allow television personalities to have him perform on television instead of on the screen, with his dancing style being shown across the country and even around the world. He starred in the movie Siegfried Follies in 1945 with fellow actor Gene Kelly, who would also work alongside him and even be his rival on some various movies and even in their careers in general. Plus, working with Julie Garland, another fellow actress who was rising at the time. Throughout the 1940s, however, he would sing and dance his way to people's hearts and minds, with more musical movies to television appearances. Whilst in the 1950s, we would see the young Fred Astaire grow older, with most of his movies still being musicals and sometimes non-musical appearances, depending on the studios who would provide him the contracts to become a better actor. He managed to act on The Beach in 1959, which was a non-musical role. However, but noted that to be in the movie as a Australian scientist. Earlier on in that decade of the 1950s, he would play in the movie Royal Wedding in 1951 with Jane Powell. And this movie was based on the marriage between Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip during the 1950s. He was able to star in a remake of a play he performed in the 1920s called Funny Face, alongside with Audrey Hepburn in 1957. Personal life and final years. Fred Astaire was married at least two times in his life. His first wife was Phyllis Potter from 1933 to 1954. The couple would have two children together, but sadly she passed away during over 20 years of marriage to Fred Astaire. His second wife was Robin Smith, and they were married from 1980 to until his death in 1987. So 7 years. They were together. He was able to still dance and sing whilst growing older, and even spend more time choreographing dance moves for more actors, actresses, singers, and even dancers across the globe. He won many awards from the Golden Globes to Academy Awards when he was an actor and a dancer. He managed to get a BAFTA award, then a star on Hollywood Walk of Fame. He managed to act in film, television, and even the stage after the 1950s, spending less time dancing and more time in non-singing performing roles. Starring in a film he starred in called The Towering Inferno in 1974 with Steve McQueen and Paul Newman, was one of his greatest and even one of his guest appearances in a non-dancing role. Plus, his final film performance was Ghost Story in 1981. He starred in Christmas movies and sometimes made an appearance on various television series and films as a narrator or the occasional guest star. Before the time of his death, he was able to work with Sammy Davis Jr. and Michael Jackson, to name a few of the actors and dancers he was able to meet, as they were able to work with the great actor that influenced them. He was able to influence many more people in Hollywood by being able to take part in managing their um, choreography for dancing and even singing and even acting. He managed to become part of a Hollywood community by spending some time with other great icons such as Bing Crosby to Frank Sinatra. He would retire in the late 1980s or the 1980s in general, and still was able to be active in the dancing and theatre community. Legacy of a silver screen dancer. The iconic dance legend, singer, and actor Fred Astaire passed away on the 22nd of June 1987 at the age of 88. He was remembered by many actors, actresses, and um, people around the world and even in Hollywood based on his contribution to acting as well as dancing. Spending at least 77 years as one of the pioneers of musicals on the silver screen. His honors and tributes had been made from the 1930s till now in the late 2010s. Many actors played or appeared as Fred Astaire in various movies to televisions, with an actor such as Grant Gustin, who played the Flash on the television, managed to talk about him in one of the episodes of the television series. Whilst or even after his death, he was able to be sung about in a song called Fred Astaire by one of my favorite indie rock bands, San Cisco. Even has been able to being shown in various archived footage to videos based on movies around the world. He became a Hollywood legend, and even now, new Hollywood stars are inspired by his style of acting and even his legacy that was provided. Even had time to take over his legacy. Overall, Fred Astaire's legacy has made an impact in film, television, and now video games of today, with most of his style of to acting being incorporated in each medium, then being honored and remembered for his contributions. This video is one of the last in my series of basic biographies. I'll be making another series of basic biographies, which will be another 40 videos. Hopefully, there will be a third series that would cover the rest on the final members of the Hollywood community, or the old Hollywood actors and actresses that were covered throughout my videos. But thank you for watching, and please subscribe if you haven't done so. I'm Suki Cookie, and please check out my other videos, and please stay tuned for more content like this. Thank you.